Yeah.
So maybe let me take this chance to just introduce myself. So my name is Moketsi Benedict Tekere. I look after Ngwana Africa, which is Botswana's only pre-seed startup accelerator. We also have a micro fund called Pula Space. In this session, I've invited Mikhail from DueDash to just come and share with some of our startups here in Botswana about what it actually means to be an investable startup, right? So DueDash is one of our partners that we've signed a partnership with that's actually going to be giving some of the startups from Botswana and the region basically access to investors. So Mikhail will deep dive on that content. So Mikhail, for your purpose, we've just invited 1 to 8 startups. They are currently raising seed. Most of them are pre-seed, pre-series A. So I think once you start engaging with them, they'll introduce what their startups are doing and what they're engaging. So I think let me just kick it off and hand over to Mikhail to lead the session. So we have timed this for 1 hour. So if we go beyond, we won't delay more than 1 hour, 30 minutes. So, and we are recording this so that we can put it as a repository on our platform, which for those that have missed the session, they can just go through it. All right, Mikhail, over to you. I'll give you also the presentation for you to be able to do that.
Sounds good, sounds good. Yeah, before we go into this one, I think it would be good to learn more about you guys. So I see if you are a small round, so I think it would be fine to maybe have a quick introduction from the 3 of you. So Richmond, Bank, Shine. Maybe you can just show your face as well, turn on your video, and maybe just briefly introduce yourself. Maybe like 1 sentence about what is your startup doing, kind of like your elevator pitch, and where you are on your fundraise. I think that would be good for me to know who you are, and then we can dive into that.
Okay, hello everyone.
Hello, Richmond.
Yes, unfortunately, I'm having webcam issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, my name is Richmond, and I am the founder of Bantu Vision. I am currently developing a mobile game, which is African themed. Yes.
Understand. And have you raised funding, or where you are right now in your process?
I haven't managed to raise funding yet. I'm still in the process of building a prototype, and I'm currently looking for funding to actually finance the workforce.
Understand. Great. Yeah, and then thank you in the introduction, Richmond. Arabank, what about yourself? Arabank, are you there?
Good afternoon.
Yeah,
I'm here. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm from Lamdig, a freelance marketplace that connects skilled African talent to global gigs.
And what about yourself? Have you kind of raised funding so far, or are you well? And for you, Shina?
Good afternoon.
Shine, sorry for it.
So basically, this is a fintech startup where we have a mobile app called Bachi. So our mobile app really is focused on empowering small businesses so that they can thrive, whereby we allow small businesses to get checking accounts like your money transfers, your peer-to-peer lending, your access to credit from listed financial institutions, and different services really. So we offer our value proposition through the mobile application. That's what we are currently raising the fund for. In the next 2 months, I believe now it will be the right time for us to commercially launch our product as capital, just to afford a few basic stuff. Yeah, that is us for now.
Great. Yeah, I see our Buckler, you also joined. Maybe you also want to do a quick introduction, maybe just like a 1 sentence, 2 sentence elevator pitch, what your startup is doing and where you are on your fundraise before we dive into this webinar.
All right, thank you. I just joined. So my startup is trying to do education transformation. Our main aim is to try to find ways of improving the education industry from a lower level in Botswana. So we've come up with a couple of solutions from a student perspective. So I'm currently like mentoring students so that those solutions can be marketable and they can be also sustainable.
Understand. Okay, great. Yeah, this is good for me to also get to know you before I jump into this one. No, and as part of this one. So I am Michael Kozak. I'm one of the co-founders of DueDash and the CMO. Just to know, I've worked as a community builder with various type organizations in India and China, across you in Europe, to really understand how startups investors engage and how we become successful, right? And this whole journey in the end led me also to become one of the co-founders of DueDash to solve one of the biggest challenges, which is fundraising, investor relations, really making sure that you are able to go through the process. So what I would like to do today is first, we're going to talk briefly about the fundraising. We're going to talk about the process, how you have to go fundraise, what's relevant, right? We're going to have like education around this, that you really need to understand what you need to do starting from today to actually raise funding. And then also how you can go about it practically. We are going to show you how DueDash can potentially support you through that. So that's what we're going to go through, and we will have time for questions later as well. As we are a small round, if you have something really urgent or something to ask, we might be even able to do it in between. No, but otherwise you can also do it at the end for the session. Now, let's first talk about what I would call the problem. Why is actually fundraising such a big issue? What's happening at the moment? So see, where is actually, if you look at the global fundraising market, where is a lot of money out there. Quite a lot. Since last year, it has been an increase of 111% in venture funding. Over 600 billion USD have been invested. It's a huge amount of money. So you're thinking about, okay, isn't that great? There's so much money around there to potentially be invested in. But still, most startups are not able to raise funding. Less than 1% of startups ever raise any funding. Most deals don't come through. Whereas over 65 million firms, and you are probably one of them, looking for funding. And that amounts up to 5.2 trillion USD, which is an unmet financing need in existence. At the same time, the investors, we're going to have it much easier than you guys, because we are right now trying to really find the right startups, go through it, analyze them, and have a great deal, which leads to a lot of wasted money. More than 37 billion is spent on deal sourcing and preliminary due diligence, so kind of like analyzing, checking your data to come through. Now, the thing why this exists, why you might be struggling potentially when it comes to fundraising, is based on how the startups investors engage, on some of the challenges that exist right now between both sides. Now, you as a founder, you exchange with investors, and first you need to make sure that they find about you. They have to see the right information, know who you are, does it fit? You have to find them. So first, it's kind of like really going after the right types of investors, right? So here comes like the first friction point. Now, making sure you have the right connection. If you go after the wrong people, it's not going to be a right fit. And also, even if you come connected, you find the right person. The next thing is you have to share the right investment signals to investors. That means when we want to know, okay, is this the right company for me? Does it fit for me? Can I work with them? You have to prepare a certain set of data and documents for the investors to convince them. Otherwise, they'll just pass on. Because fundraising, it's a process. It's not a singular event. Maybe you have seen an episode of Shark Tank or something like this one. That's not how fundraising works. Fundraising is a continuous process where you need to share with investors the right updates, the information, and build a relationship. And over time, they develop the trust to invest in you, to maybe share your deal with other investors, to give you advice and support you along the journey. And that is something that you need to kind of like change in the process when you go about it. Now, before we kind of like go further, I think it's also important that you always understand you usually have like one good chance to make a good first impression on an investor. So you want to make it count. And that's what you're going to walk through today on the steps that you have to work on step by step. Because if you don't do them, you might lose out the chance. The investor might say, nope, Shine or Richmond or one of you, it's not really the right person to invest in, and then move on. You want to avoid that. Now, to kind of really avoid this going through this, there's a couple of things you'll have to do. Of course, you need to have enough time and be disciplined about the whole process. It takes on average 3 to 9 months in order to actually close a round. And you need more than just a pitch deck. You need a specific set of data and documents investors want to ask you. And you have to ask yourself, do you have all your relevant data ready? Do you know which investors you have to target to actually be successful? And this data needs to be updated over time. It's not like you, one time here, this is my stuff for investors, and be done with it. You have to continuously update information with investors so that they then to say, I will be investing in you. And the target profile will likely change. So let's say you're raising a pre-seed round, then a seed round, when you go into Series A, these things will change, and then it's not the same set of investors that you targeted previously. Now, let's talk about the prerequisites. And maybe it would be interesting also while we go through this, if you guys have this ready, maybe you can put this also into the chat. One thing we're going to walk through is your 5T, your basic data, something that every investor will ask you. Think about your team, technology, traction, timing, TAM. I'm gonna walk through all in detail in a second. So you need to have your base information ready, because that's what investors want to see. They want to know if your startup's actually worth their time to deal further with them. You need to have your data room ready, because every investor will want to go through a due diligence. They want to find red flags, issues. Is your company fine to invest in? So there's a specific set of documents that you need to prepare for them as well. And as you can probably guess it, you need to know who you target. Spray and pray, what many people do, is not working. So you cannot just randomly take a pitch deck and slap it into every person who has the job title investor on LinkedIn. You have to be specific about who you target. It's about smart money. People who can open doors for you, who can help you further, who will invest in your market. So that's another very important piece. So let's go over step by step. Let's talk about the 5T. First comes the team. An investor definitely wants to know who is making up this team, who is working on it. So if we have, let's say, our Makwa, or I just see NM, also that you joined, who are the people working with you together? What's your experience? Why can I trust my money with you guys? Why will you be able to make the whole thing happen and can build businesses? Have your previous business experience? Do you have any degrees, anything else that gives me trust in your abilities as founding team? Another aspect is your technology. Of course, do you have ability to scale your product? Is it ready? How easily can it be copied from other market participants? Do you actually know how to build it, the cost factors of that? Then, very important, the traction. Are you making money? How much money are you making? What's the growth? Do you have, how many users do you have potentially? And investors usually like to see what we call the hockey stick curve, like you have an exponential growth in your business. Timing. Do you know, like, who's your competitors? Why is the market ready now for what you're doing? Why is it ready? Can you actually go into this one? For example, sometimes I see people saying, I want to do the next Amazon in markets where Amazon is already quite strong. So like, well, how are you going to do it? It already exists here. So you really make sure, is your market ready for it, and how you're going about it. And also your TAM. For you who don't know what it is, TAM is a total addressable market. How big is the market you can capture? Because an investor want to see that there is enough potential to grow. So, okay, let's say you start in Botswana, then maybe you go into the southern part of the African continent. Maybe you say, okay, my potential market is across the continent. Actually, I will scale step by step. That's how much you can capture. They want to know what will be the return of investments, because investors need to make a 3x return. Now, maybe as a quick show of hand, you could put all in the chat. I would actually be interested, maybe you can do this now. Who of you knows the 5Ts? Very honestly speaking, you can just write yes or no. For all you, do you have all these data points ready at the moment? That would be interesting to see. So Richmond, Awakwa, NM, just a kind of yes or she shine, just into the chat, like yes or no. So I'm just checking in that you guys are still with me.
I'm here, I'm listening.
Yes, so Richmond, okay, great. It's good that you have some base data on this ready. Because that is something you have to share with investors the right set of information, right? Now, the next thing you guys will also need to do is your data room. And the data room is basically like the core information to analyze the company, understand it. If an investor, let's put, say, 10 or 50,000 USD into your company, they want to know this money is in good hands. So what we, of course, want to see is your pitch deck. And a pitch deck is kind of like a narrative, how a company goes, and kind of like a snapshot of all the different information. Then there's a one-pager. Here it's about showing on one page the core information. That's the company, how they make money, that's the team, etc., etc. A video pitch is also good. We cannot meet so often at the moment because of COVID and everything. And you might also interact at some point with investors in other countries. So here, having a good, nice recorded video pitch helps you also showcase who are the team members, what you're doing. Another aspect is your go-to-market. How do you make money? How are you going to grow marketing? How are you going to do your sales? How do you ensure that actually whatever you're planning will come to fruition and you're going to make that income and can further scale the business? Your corporate IP documents, technology, right? Your financials. So investors really want to know about the company in detail. How does it look like at the moment? Your bank statements. You want to know what's your tax stack, etc. And of course, legal agreements is who are the founding team, the equity stakes. Do you have any agreements with your employees? And other relevant legal documents. Now, also, we talked about targeting the right investors. Right? It's about quality, not quantity. You could have 10,000 investors, but if you don't target the right investors, it's not going to work. So you first want to see which channels you use, right? Where do you reach the right investors? Where do you exchange with them? At the events, social media sites, specific investment platforms, that you actually reach out to the right investors. You also want to make sure that you know how much am I raising? What's the valuation that you potentially are willing to give investors? What are the terms? Right? In terms, for example, do I directly get equity? In the US, often they do something called like SAFE. The SAFE notes, where kind of like it's a promissory note to potentially get equity in the future. It depends also a bit on the regulation in Botswana, what you can do, but you need to have really the definition of how much you're raising and under which terms. And also, you should kind of like think about what is the value the investor can give. What is the maybe knowledge about the market, support? Can they open doors for you? For example, let's say you want to grow to the South African market. So maybe you look for investors who have an understanding of how to go in this market. They have built businesses in that area before, right? And then you can build that engagement with them. And the core of it now will be building that qualitative relationship with the investors. That means what you guys have to do. One thing is to manage them. You have to manage the investors. You have to know who you're talking to, right? You can only remember so many people. There's something called Dunbar's rule of numbers that you can actively manage maybe 150 people. And where's your parents, other relatives, your kind of like your close friends. And if you only remember all these people, how should you also keep track of all the investors in every conversation you have? So you need a dedicated CRM system, a customer relationship management system, to manage all these investors. Yeah, we will have time for questions, Arabang, so don't worry. We're going to come to it in a second. Another aspect you'll have to do is to share updates and define cadence. So you need to make sure that you share with investors the process. As I said, it's not a one-term thing. I actually just had a call with an investor before this meeting, and he told me about a very promising startup. Like, it was all interesting company, deep tech. And when he told me, he basically wasn't sure to invest now. He basically told them, hey, not at the moment. You could still think maybe investing at some point in the future, but not now. And the startup was like, okay, thank you. Have a good life. Never see you again, basically. That's the whole issue. Investors don't invest right away. You have to build that relationship. I'm just stressing this because it's so important. So you need to update them and show this investors, why is it worth to back your company? So how do you do that whole process? How do you prepare all the data, documents, manage this, and go through it? For that, we're happy to help you with DueDash. So let me walk you through. DueDash is an AI-driven toolkit. It's an investor relations platform for you to successfully partner with the investors to connect, collaborate, and get to funding, get to successful investments, and make sure you keep the investors happy, and you as well also become happy in the process as well. Now, what DueDash does is the following ways. So it's an investor relations toolkit. So one way we help you is through our investor relations platform, which is our main platform from which you can do all these processes which I just mentioned on the exchange. I will give you a demo a bit later here in the session after we're done with that. But basically that you can manage all the investors, track your metrics, and ensure that you raise capital. We also support further startups like one-on-one if you want us to go through your documents, data, give you direct connections to investors. Another aspect what you will encounter in the meetings of investors is we will give you very difficult questions, curveball questions. So we're going to ask you, okay, how are you actually going to do this, right? I'm not trusting the number. We're going to put you on the spot. And we collected 77 types of questions that investors usually always ask you and put them into an interactive self-guided course, which you can also access through our DueDash education platform to learn and be prepared for any investor question. We have support also from our partner network, credits and discounts up to 100,000 USD, such as AWS HubSpot Freshworks. We have a community to exchange, and we also have what we call Data Vault. It's a traction tool to get your sales and marketing level to the next game through analytics and sharing documents through a shareable link. Now let's talk about this investor relations platform to mention, which will be the core of that process. What our DueDash Investor platforms does is to give you a platform to first find the right investors. You're able to exchange with them. You're able to go through a structured diligence. So you make sure that each step is covered, all the information you want to see. You can keep track of the investors and update them. So as I mentioned, it's a whole process. It's a whole relationship. And the platform enables you step by step to take each of these steps guided. You're not alone with that. So you know what you have to do and can very easily manage it. And the thing is, the platform also enables you to streamline your information. So you probably have reached out to investors on LinkedIn, maybe on Twitter, maybe through email, for different platforms. On DueDash, you can now have all the relevant information through one platform, and we're going to continuously update it. For example, with our proprietary algorithm, we're going to have like further scoring, give you insights into how investable is your company at the moment and where you have to work on. Now, before I show you the demo, Muketsi, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm still here, Mikhail.
Yeah, I would just request you for the demo to just stop recording, and when the Q&A we can restart, because we change it. We always do our updates, so we always want to make sure that the newest version is ready. We do like weekly demos for anybody who wants to join after. But so I would just ask you to stop recording for this piece,